X Radio, programming for the open mind.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight in the chat room and those listening from around the world. And tonight we have with us Barbara Duncan.
Hello, everyone.
And Jeffrey Gould.
Hello, hello.
And
can you hear me yet?
Yeah, you're good. And
okay. It's still saying I'm muted. My PC is getting slow.
And speaking from around the world, Barbara, where do we have listeners at?
All over the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Germany.
All right. I hope that they're enjoying the show. And with our great guest tonight, Don Allison, I want to welcome you back.
Well, thank you. Having a good time.
The spirits are too, aren't they?
Yes, that they are. I do have to share one story that Diane reminded me of that just happened about a week ago. We got new phones, new cell phones, and I was going through the process of copying apps and passwords and pictures and all that, and I wanted to check that my ghost detector app worked on the new phone. I turned it on just to see that it worked, and immediately the word popcorn popped up, no pun intended. But the reason that was odd is I was sitting beside the stand for the bird, and we have a little bowl. He loves popcorn, and his popcorn bowl was empty. And right immediately after popcorn came the word screech. The bird will often screech if we're not giving him his popcorn. That is, I don't know how you explain those things.
Huh.
Maybe
Okay.
Rusty is using the Force.
Take and make sure your microphone is up so you're talking into it, not real close to your mouth, but up. And check the volume level again because you're getting real low again.
Is it quiet?
Yeah, getting real quiet.
So I have to ask which ghost app you're using. Is it Ghost Radar?
It was Ghost Detector.
Ghost Detector. Okay.
Yeah. Is that better on the mic?
Seems to be a little.
Cool.
Yeah, it's the computer. There it goes up. It's going. The volume is going down on its own as I look at it.
Wow.
It just went down. It's up.
Huh.
Wow.
I've never had anything like this before.
Oh, they're
Well,
just...
how is Rusty doing, by the way?
Oh, he's doing quite well. He's in the living room screaming at us because he's there and we're here. And he can hear my voice, I think.
So, what kind of parrot is Rusty?
He is a green cheek conure.
Oh.
Okay.
Diane says a loudmouth sapsuck. Be loud.
Apparently he's not talking very much tonight because I haven't heard him.
No, he's a couple rooms over. Would you like Diane to get him?
If she wants to. We'll talk with Rusty.
With Rusty, you never know what you're going to get. He may not say a word. He may chatter up a storm.
Well, we'll see.
He does swear.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Nothing really bad.
All right, I got a question coming from the chat room. They said a while ago you was talking about a Yankee gutter, and she wanted to know, what is a Yankee gutter?
A Yankee gutter is an old-fashioned, really water, I guess, diverting device. The house we have has a mansard roof for the second level, and the Yankee gutter is a 2-foot wide gutter. It doesn't have a downspout or anything. Oops, there's Rusty.
I hear him.
It's going to be loud. But it just keeps the water away from the house, is what it does.
Huh. Yeah, I don't think I've seen those. Have you noticed those type of gutters in Gettysburg?
They tend to be on houses with mansard roofs.
Okay.
Interesting. So I have my ghost radar on, and it said remove fireplace.
Sometimes those apps are just random, but other times they can be right on. Boy, Rusty's really being obnoxious tonight.
Oh, boy.
He's probably
Maybe
sensing
we should.
Probably sensing the ghost is turning down your volume all the time.
So we would be remiss without addressing your last book, I believe it was, and that would be the Christmas carols, the censored Christmas carols. And have you taught Rusty any of those songs to sing?
He doesn't sing much.
Ah.
He does communicate. He doesn't sing much, but no, the carols, it's kind of a tradition. I do a weekly newspaper column for the Bryan Times, and every year about Christmas time I come up with modern lyrics for set to the traditional Christmas tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd done these for years, and someone said, you ought to do a collection of these. I mean, I have had, like, people ask my permission to use them for skits and things like that. And where the the censored came in is I did the book in paperback, and it's almost award-winning Christmas carols. When I went to list it on Amazon, they refused to list it. And they first wouldn't tell me why. Finally, they said, well, because I falsely claimed that they're award-winning. And I said, well, no, I didn't claim that they're award-winning. I said they're almost award-winning. And technically, they are award-winning because my column has often won Associated Press awards. And I have some of the columns that have won awards have been the Christmas Carol column. So technically, they really are award-winning, but for humor's sake, I went with almost award-winning. They would not let me have that title.
Wow.
So I just said almost censored, and they did let that go through. So I had a lot of fun with that one, actually.
They are rather nice. I must admit that Christmas Sales should be a classic. And Credit Cards is also a very good tune.
Yeah, that's
and
one of my favorites.
I just can't believe that this is not on everybody's list for next year when we're allowed to go caroling again, to start singing Don Allison's Christmas carols.
But yeah, I'd have a lot of fun with that book, and since I do have another paranormal book that I want to do. Of course, I had my follow-up. I met more ghosts at Gettysburg to the first Gettysburg book, but I found it interesting that we have a listener from Germany tonight, because the book that I planned on having done last year and could not finish because of COVID is based on the 107th Ohio Regiment at Gettysburg and Chancellorsville, and that is a German regiment from Ohio. German heritage, a lot of actual German-born soldiers fought in it. And I had kind of my own paranormal experience related to the 107th that led me to research them and decide to write the book.
So yeah, it would be interesting. There's a lot of German settlements around the Midwest, and I assume that there would be, if you're going to get EVPs, they would be in German.
Actually, my wife and I did get an EVP in German when we were on their position on the opening day of the Gettysburg fight.
Really?
yeah, I had a K2 meter. We stopped, and we hadn't planned on being there, but it turned dark, but it was early enough. The park was still open. We stopped. I got out my K2 meter. I started talking, calling out names of some of the soldiers, the colonel of the regiment, and so forth. And ironically, and I know these are very controversial, but we started getting orbs, lots of orbs. I know some people think they're never paranormal. I don't think they're often paranormal, but I think sometimes they are, and I think this may have been a case. The air is filled with them. They weren't there before, and they weren't there later when we left. It was only when I was talking. But I had my K2 meter, and I said, okay, if you would like to let me know you're here with us, touch this box. Just touch this box on the count of 3. I counted to 3, the K2 meter went up about halfway, and Diane took a picture at that time, and I heard her gasp. And later she showed me, and right at the moment that the K2 meter reacted, there was a large orb right above the K2 meter, about the size of my head. And because of the position of where I'm at in relation to the 107th monument, you can see that the orb is in front of the monument, but between me and the monument. And then later,
just out of curiosity, how did the K2 meter react to it?
It went up. The needle went up probably close to halfway, right on cue. So then we get out a digital recorder doing EVPs, and I was asking different questions, but Diane came up with a good one. She has German ancestry, so she said, says, I have German ancestry. I'm proud of my German ancestry and heritage. Are you proud of your German ancestry? And we got a very clear, yeah. It is far and away the best EVP I've ever gotten.
Did I fall off?
Did you try talking to them in German at any point?
I do not know German.
Okay.
Beyond sprachen die Deutsch. And actually, I did have a good experience with that at at a spot, actually the Haunted Trails of Gettysburg. You did the show there, I think in 2019, maybe during the Gettysburg trip. But we were investigating there at the edge of the woods, and we'd been getting what sounded like German conversation. We couldn't tell coming over a Phasma box. We couldn't tell if they knew we were there or this was just a conversation we were picking up. But we moved the Phasma box back into the woods. I was there by myself getting that area ready, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Phasma box says, "Are you Dutch?" And I kind of laughed. I said, "No, I'm not Dutch. I do have some German ancestry, but I'm not Dutch." And then I thought, okay, so I said, "Sprechen die Deutsch?" And the voice, one of the voices says 9, and there was a woman and 2 men. The woman said 9, and the 2 men started laughing.
Huh. Well, you can always say Guten Tag.
That one I'm not familiar with.
That's, hello,
Actually, there's no
how are
L
you?
in Guten Tag,
Yeah.
which means good afternoon, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Oddly enough, there was a video game my brother played many years ago called Castle Wolfenstein. It was difficult for me to watch because it was gave me virtual motion sickness. But when you got to the big boss at the end, which you literally could only fight in God mode, otherwise you'd just be killed. The first he would just burst through a door and go Guten Tag, and just attack. That's something I always thought that was really funny. But you know more German than you probably realize. What did you go to before you did the first grade in school? What was that called?
Kindergarten.
Oh, kindergarten?
Yeah,
Child's
that's German.
garden?
And what do you sometimes say when people sneeze?
Of course, Gesundheit.
There you go.
So,
And I guess that means BS in Chinese, for what it's worth.
oh, really?
Yeah, my son worked at a Chinese restaurant here in Bryan, and somebody sneezed and he said that, and he got chewed out and was told that it translated to BS in Chinese.
Oh, wow. Well, I always thought, because I came across a book, the word health was in the title, and it had Gesundheit, and I thought, oh, I guess that's what Gesundheit means, is like health to you or something like that. And I was visiting people in Germany, and one of them sneezed, and without thinking, I just said Gesundheit, and they burst out laughing, because nobody says it in German.
Huh.
And I don't remember what they do say, but it's not that.
Wow.
Okay.
So we speak German that they don't understand, huh?
I guess so. Well, I guess it's there. I mean, they have this really long, convoluted word for bathroom or restroom or something, and I was like, oh no, how am I going to figure out how to? I can't even remember the word. And then I was at a railway station and it just said toiletten. I'm like, well, that's pretty easy.
Wow.
Now, Don, just as an aside, speaking of Gettysburg, I go through all sorts of YouTubes and like lists of haunted places, and I didn't realize that A, Gettysburg has a college. I didn't know that, but B, it's super haunted. Have you ever checked that out?
I have not gotten to investigate the college. There are some pretty crazy stories of things that have happened there. One of the most famous, maybe you guys have heard about this, but some folks took elevator down to the basement of one of the college buildings. It's a wartime building, and it served as a field hospital. And when the elevator doors opened, they had gone back in time and were viewing the triage, the operating room area in the basement of this building as it happened during the battle. And I guess there were like 3 people involved, and they all swore by it, and they were frightened. They couldn't get the elevator to go up right away. And then, of course, then it was once they left the area, nobody saw it again.
Well, and also when they saw it, there was no sound. It was just visual.
Correct. And which reminds me of when my first paranormal book, I Met a Ghost at Gettysburg, came out. Good friend of mine who is a Civil War author, I thought he'd probably give me some flack about doing a paranormal book. He was really pretty nice about it. He says, I don't believe in it, but if you're a journalist and you've had experiences, I have to respect that. But he says, I will have to tell you. He said he got into Gettysburg late one rainy night with a friend, and they decided to turn off of Route 30 coming in from the west, and they went near the Lutheran seminary in the rain, and a horse, riderless horse with a Union saddle blanket, McClellan saddle, riderless horse galloped across the road in front of them, but it made no noise. And he said they just looked at each other. Did you see that? Yeah. And this is a guy who doesn't believe in the paranormal.
Wow.
And he still doesn't believe?
He still maintains that he doesn't know what he saw, but he's pretty skeptical about anything to do with the paranormal. And there is a segment of historians who take that view. I took some of those people to task a little bit in my I Met More Ghosts at Gettysburg book.
Okay, check your volume again. It's starting to go back down.
Doing it again?
Yeah, it's going back down again.
Yeah, it's Yeah, well, did it go up there? It's weird.
So
I
they
watched the
figured
level
out,
go back and forth, and I'm not doing anything to it.
they figured out volume control. This is good.
Okay.
When they figure out your login password, you're going to be in trouble.
I will have to tell you, I used to have a touchscreen computer, and I would sometimes start opening programs, but I had current book chapters on I Met More Ghosts at Gettysburg book on the desktop, and I would leave the room and I would come back, and one of those chapters would be open.
Huh.
It was not open when I left the room. I got to the point I was afraid they'd mess with things, so I would not leave the computer on if I wasn't in the room.
But you bring up a really good point about these fire tablets or phones with the digital pads on them. I wonder if that is another means of communication that nobody's picked up yet. You can pretty much touch the screen and move it.
That could be, because at first when I started getting programs open on that touch screen, it would look just like when I would let Rusty play with it. He knew if he tapped an icon, it would do something. So he'd just start tapping icons. But then later there seemed to be some intelligence behind whatever entity was doing that.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of trying that. Just leave the keypad up to see if they communicate that way.
Huh.
Yeah. One of the things that did happen, and Diane was reminding me, and I think, Barbara, that you are the one who had suggested this, but not sure what you'd call them. They're almost like a bed of nails.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Child's feet. And you had suggested trying that. And this was when I was having this issue with the computer. And you said, put it by the computer and see what happens. So my son bought me one of the old school metal ones.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on my desk one night and nothing happened, but I put it beside my computer the next night by the keyboard, even though the computer wasn't on. And I came down in the office the next morning, and there was a child's handprint in that.
Wow.
Almost like the fingers were extended. It wasn't like a flat hand, but with the fingers extended. And part of the palm and the fingers.
Wow.
You should set up a CCTV system facing areas where you get more activity, so you can actually see either stuff moving on its own or mists or shadow people and all sorts.
We have seen, there again, Diane's seen the mist. Diane and I both saw a shadow person in the garage once. Now my grandson has twice seen a farmer, an old farmer in overalls when he was younger. 2 different times, and another woman, unrelated, she would not know of my grandson's experience, and vice versa, has seen the same farmer, actually leaning on a tree, and against a tree in the backyard.
Wow.
Your grandson is so sensitive and it skipped a generation?
He was with me at Gettysburg when I had the experience with the Ohio captain on the little spirit box. So he's had some experience with it.
I find it interesting that your son seems to be sensitive, but your grandson has the dowsing capability. It really is interesting to see how these different gifts are transmitted down family lines.
Yeah, actually, my son doesn't seem to have any. He's very skeptical, but he takes the approach that, well, he doesn't think I'd make it up, which that's the advantage being a journalist has really had with my books. I think that opened doors for me that would not normally be open to people who are skeptics.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, when you was at the David Stewart farm, they had a investigation that night after the event, didn't they? Did you get a stay for that?
I did not. That was my first time there. I didn't really know too many folks, and no, unfortunately, I didn't get that chance.
Okay, I didn't stay for the event either, but later on we did the show from there. I think a year later or something like that, and I did out in the barn. We could see little red dots, which was the Confederates that were wounded smoking cigarettes.
Wow.
And it wasn't just me that seen them. I think they must have been 10, 11 people out there, and we was all standing at one end of the barn, and you could see it on the other end. And it wouldn't just be one little red light. You'd see 6, 7, 8 of them, and they'd get bright and then go dim. So it was pretty interesting. And normally I don't see stuff.
Yeah, that's like me. I very rarely see things. Now, I had an experience, it'd be a year ago, last October, and actually I was with Cat Gash, and I had ancestors who fought at Gettysburg in the Alabama Brigade, including the 15th Alabama that fought the 20th Maine. Some of my experiences that led me to discover that are in my I Met More Ghosts at Gettysburg book. But we stopped at the Alabama Monument, and I was just curious what Cat might pick up there. And as she and I are talking, I look up and I see a semi-transparent, almost smoky figure walking up behind her. And I don't see things, and that just floored me. Cat wheeled around and yelled and says, "Don't sneak up on me like that," and the figure backed up about 10 or 15 feet. Pretty soon, some more came up, and there were probably 6 of them there. And Kat said she was getting communication with them, and they were telling her that we should go away. And I said, "Why? Is it threatening?" She says, "No, they're concerned for us." So we left, and we drove around to the base of Little Round Top, actually to pretty much the spot where my ancestors in the 15th Alabama made the initial charge. And we're talking, and Kat said, "Do you see that?" And I looked, and there was a dark figure pacing back and forth. Just a lone figure, but then pretty soon there were more gray, semi-transparent figures, almost the consistency of a heavy smoke. And some of them were very bright, which was odd. Others were not, but there were more and more of these, and they started approaching us to the point that there were probably 24 of these apparitions. And the best way I can describe them is they were human shape. You can see arms, legs, make out that they're wearing hats, even in some cases the coats, but no facial features. But I was quite startled. I turned, and there was one about 3 feet away, very tall, and as I seemed startled, Kat says, "Well, that's a tall goomer." And she was getting communication with one of them, and she said his name was Sam. He was very raggedy, and he had a connection with me, but he wouldn't say what it was. And I'm not familiar with a Sam that I'm related to, but I certainly haven't done all the genealogical research. But finally, Kat said she was getting uncomfortable. I was fascinated. I could not believe what I was seeing. Kat finally said she was getting uncomfortable, so we left.
Wow.
But no weapons, which I found rather interesting, but definitely what looked to be uniforms, especially the short shell jackets that the soldiers often wore, even slouch hats.
Wow.
Could be made of. It was the most incredible sight of paranormal far and away that I've ever experienced.
Now, I know you did a segment on one of those shows about the grain elevator in Bryan.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what was the history on that, and was it actually haunted?
Very much so. I had been around the building. It's been abandoned for years, but I never thought much of it. But we have a local paranormal group that is investigated, and I went with them to check it out just to see the building one afternoon, and I wasn't there 2 minutes, and I saw a very clear shadow figure in the building. And one of the guys had a digital recorder, so we went over, and he immediately got an EVP, get out, very clear.
Wow.
The history of the place, and we didn't know this when we filmed, but in the 1950s, a gentleman was crushed in the machinery, and nobody could hear him, and apparently it was a rather slow, agonizing type of death.
Wow.
But it's right along the railroad tracks, and there have been some horrific train accidents there. And actually an EVP that we got there was the name Amanda, and a woman by the name of Amanda back in the 1870s, I believe, her child darted across the tracks as the train was approaching. Apparently, the time of year, the time of day this was, the train was actually hidden in the sun, and she darted to try to save her kid. Her kid made it across. She did not.
Huh.
She was basically blasted into pieces by a speeding locomotive.
Wow.
And her name is Amanda, and she's been heard on EVPs.
Wow. So, is that still around? I mean, does people still go there and investigate?
Yes, they do. And I've investigated a number of times there and never failed to get some sort of evidence.
So after
we were there one time. Actually, a couple of guys from the Tennessee Wraith Chasers were there. It was a public hunt, and Diane and I were with them that night, and there was a ghost in part of the granary just poking fun at one of the Wraith Chasers. I can't repeat what he said. The F word was quite prevalent among other words, but an interesting place, yes.
So after you started getting into the paranormal, was there other places around Bryan that you found out was haunted?
Yes, quite a few actually. Our old jail is very active. The last time that not the last time, but one time recently that I investigated that, we had a very active woman's voice was coming through the ITC, communication devices, and she sounded like a drunk partier.
Huh.
And I actually, another time, my late uncle, actually was in charge of the jail at one time, and I got his voice to come through like about 6 months after he died.
Wow.
It came through as an EVP.
Check your volume again. It's going down. And
Yeah, and it is. Is that a little better?
that's a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I can move it up, and it bops back down.
Huh,
I'm glad Diane's here, so she can verify this.
You just don't want to stay up, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
and there's a restaurant, microbrewery, Father John's, at an old church. That is active, and the attached parsonage is pretty wild. We investigated that once, and there were children playing upstairs. Of course, no one was upstairs, but you could hear them talking with the ear, not with electronic devices. Hear them running, but if you would go up the stairs, it would quit. and I was standing at the hallway leading to the stairs, and all of a sudden others in the room gasped, and apparently a shadow figure came up behind me. And when I turned around, it vanished. I didn't see it, but several people did.
Huh.
So yeah, Bryan has some interesting places.
That sounds to me like could be a road trip sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up sometime.
Your
Yeah,
house.
Diane said you can stay in her basement.
Oh yeah, thank you. no, thank you. So you live on 127?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's actually the old Fort Wayne to Detroit Trail.
Ah.
That segment of it.
Well, I live about a block and a half off of 127 here in Eaton, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we moved. We used to live in Trenton, but now live in Eaton, retired, and everything. So we just
is that like back in my northern New Jersey days? We had Route 23, but it was only a highway further to the north. To the south, it was like a regular road, but it was still called Route 23. Is that what you're referring to with the numbers?
No, Route 127 is the old highway. You can take it from further south, and it goes all the way north.
But is it like a freeway,
No,
or is it like a regular road that has a number assigned
just
to it?
regular road.
Parts of it are 4-lane, but most of it is 2-lane. But it was a major route back in the day, a major U.S. highway.
Okay, yeah. Because, Route 23 runs from Verona, Bloomfield Avenue, to down into Little Falls, into Wayne, and then it becomes a regular highway and stays a freeway up at least way past Butler and such like that.
Now, 127 is a major U.S. highway. There's just places on it where it is 4-lane. Most of the time, it's 2-lane.
Oh, okay.
You ever heard of Annie Oakley?
I have.
Yeah, about I think it's 19 miles north of where I'm living now, in Greenville, is the cemetery where she's buried in because she's from there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
we were just by that not too long ago, Henry.
Really?
Yeah. I guess it's been a little longer than I think because it was before COVID.
Oh,
But we saw the marker. We drove by and stopped and looked at it.
mm-hmm. Pretty interesting. They got a museum there in Greenville, Annie Oakley Museum. A lot of history in that museum for her. Pretty interesting.
Well, she was one of the major sharpshooters, though, right?
Oh, yes, she was. Barbara, you got some questions? Because we got about 10 minutes left.
I'm just trying to think of all the different stuff going on there, but nothing. Unless we want to interview Rusty, and
Interview Rusty, huh?
he seems to be quite silent tonight.
He wore himself out. He was pretty loud, but not close to the mic.
Oh.
He's asleep in Diane's arms now.
Aw. Well, I'm sure he would let us know if one of your spirits wanted to come in and listen to the show, wouldn't he?
He'd probably let us know, yes.
So, you and Diane and your grandson, has your son ever had any experiences there in the house?
My grandson's son has not, but my other son has. As a matter of fact, it was funny. He was poking fun at some of the ghost stories early on, and he spent the day helping me out. And I was telling him about the radios turning off on their own, and he's, yeah, right, and tools and so forth. And so we turned the radio on downstairs, turned it up loud. We're working upstairs. We got to the top of the stairs, the radio turned off. And it did this 3 times. And he's okay. And then he finally was starting to open up to the idea. So he at least experienced that.
Wow.
And when you go to check the radio itself, it's the volume level has actually been turned down. The knob has actually been turned down.
Actually, the power is turned off.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, one time, I had talked about the rock music not being appreciated by one of the spirits, but I was working in the house before we had power to the house, and I had a generator running outside to run a table saw I was using. And when it had a classic rock station on, and when a particularly loud, rowdy song came on, the radio turned off. The third time it happened, and the exact song I remember well was Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. The radio turned off, and this time I spoke out loud and I said, "Look, leave my radio alone. I like this music. I want to listen to it. Leave the radio alone." So the next rowdy song to come on, maybe a couple songs later, the radio didn't turn off. The generator outside turned off.
So they left the radio alone.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a sense of humor there. There really is.
Well, you was having problems when you were remodeling the house that things would be shut off like that for your saws and your drills and stuff. The power would go off.
Yeah, the batteries get drained immediately, often. Yeah, lights will turn it off and on their own. We still get some of that. Actually, the thing that bothered me the most when we were going to move in here was whether my computer equipment would cause problems. For the most part, it does not. Tonight is a rare exception.
Well, I suppose you don't know which one it is that keeps turning the power or the volume down.
I do not know, but another time I was on a podcast, and the program was just, it kept just taking me off, shutting the program down. We ended up finishing the show on the phone.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah, Diane says they're old ghosts. Maybe they don't know computers that well, or they would cause more trouble.
Well, apparently they know how to turn volume up and down, so maybe they would like to come and say something and tell us what their name is.
Yeah. Would you like to be on the radio? Here's your chance.
We'll give them a chance. They can just jump in there and say something anytime.
I did hear something go up.
Oh, did you? Huh.
Interesting. We didn't make any noise here.
Yeah, I thought I heard something too, right after I said that. So if I interrupted you, try again. Feel free to say something. Well, we got, was that again? Did you hear it again?
Nope.
Oh. We got about 5 minutes left. 6, something right close to it. So if you want to say something, you got just a few minutes to say it. So you can talk right anytime you want to. With that, though, any last questions for Don?
Next book, Don, you mentioned something about another ghost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on the 107th Ohio, and I had a quite strange experience. Some people call it being slammed. I was not aware of the 107th Ohio, didn't know anything about it, other than I knew they were in the same brigade as another regiment that I was looking into, and I, by accident, stumbled on their position at East Cemetery Hill, and all of a sudden I was slammed. I could see in my mind's eye this battle, this fight in the dark, muzzle flashes and people screaming and moving. And chaos. I had no clue what happened there. When I got home and researched it, I found out that is exactly what happened there. They were overrun by the Louisiana Tigers after dark.
So it's just like somebody inserted that memory in your head?
It was crazy, and I couldn't hardly. My friend was with me, said he thought I'd had a stroke. I couldn't talk, I couldn't move, couldn't walk for a number of minutes after that. And that's what led me to write the book. The EVP that Diane and I got came after I started looking into the regiment to do this book. It would be done now, but the archives at Gettysburg Visitor Center have been closed since March, and there are some things in hard copy there that exist nowhere else. And I hate to do the book without them, so the book is on hold, although if it doesn't open up this spring, I may just go without it and maybe do a better edition later. But it's called Excising the Ghosts of Dishonor, the 107th Ohio at Gettysburg and Chancellorsville.
Wow. Okay.
They were treated very badly because they were Germans, very unfairly.
Oh.
And they had horrible luck. They were in the worst place human beings could be, both at Chancellorsville and at the first day at Gettysburg.
Wow.
And they were, instead of being respected for the fight they put up, they were called the Running Half Moons. The 11th Corps, the German Corps, was made fun of. The Flying Dutchman, they were called. Their colonel was placed under arrest, was a very brave man, and he was acquitted at court-martial, but yeah, just they were treated horribly, and I think they want their story known.
Okay, we are down to like 3 minutes. So, Don, I want you to give out all your information where people can find you and contact you, and then stay on until after we're off. How's that sound?
That sounds good. Yeah, if you're interested in my paranormal books, go to www.imetaghost.com. All my books can be viewed at fatedbanner.com. You can contact me by email from either website, and of course all my books are available on Amazon as well, but I prefer you go to my website. You can request a signed, personalized copy there if you'd like.
All right. Barbara, we got like 2 minutes left. So you got anything you want to give out? You got 2 minutes.
Well, just that, there's the COVID's still out there, folks, so be sure to mask up, wash your hands, and back off everybody else.
Wow.
Stay
Jeff?
safe.
Jeff, you still with us?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just thought you'd forgotten me.
No, I haven't forgotten you.
Yeah, I will say if you want any masks, my wife has made hundreds of masks. She's a very talented seamstress.
Ooh.
She even does personalized things. So.
Does she have an Etsy?
I don't know. Yeah, she said she doesn't. And
Okay.
and she donates them to our church, the hospital. When they were short of them is when she started doing it. Sauter Historic Village, where we both work, she donates them there.
Awesome.
Wow.
It really does make a difference.
Especially when they were in short supply last spring.
Oh, yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's when she started doing them. She donated them to the hospital, and they were desperately needed at that time.
Yeah. And cloth ones are great because you can wash them.
Exactly.
All right.
Awesome.
It's
Good.
time for us to run. We will see you next week at the same time. So I hope everybody has a great week, and we will talk to you then. So this is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould.
And Barbara Duncan.
See you next week at the same time. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.